again, I don't know how that beautiful picture of this Native American can be ugly.
Hmm.
I mean, again, but now one argument that I've certainly heard that I've never really thought about because I'm not maybe in that position, but there have been Native Americans who have said, we're not your mascot. We're simply as a people not a mascot to others.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you hit the subscribe button, it'll help us out a lot. Thanks again. So a little background. I'm in Philly,
Right.
but I'm from Pittsburgh. So growing up, I'm a Steeler fan, obviously, and my wife and kids were born here, so they're Eagle fans. I'm surrounded by Eagle fans.
Sure.
I have no choice, but it's fine. It's fine. So I'm kind of a backdoor Eagle fan. Is my point. In fact, you may know this as a historian, back in '43, I believe.
The Steagles.
The Steagles, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
It's an interesting story. Yeah.
I know, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And then they, got back, to single names and Eagles and Steelers. So I bring it up because they never really had an issue with the name. It's pretty basic: Steelers, Eagles. Unlike the Redskins, through their year, I think they were the Boston Braves, right?
Yeah.
Initially?
Okay, 1932, they're the Boston Braves, and they play in the Boston Braves National League Stadium. Oh. So I'm constantly doing research on this whole history and the story. And it sort of makes sense to me that George Preston Marshall, who I believe was born in West Virginia, but he grows up in D.C., is the owner of the team. And he has a real love-hate relationship, probably more hate, with Boston as a venue for the team. So they're playing at the Brave Stadium. They're not getting good attendance. So they moved to Fenway. Now, there's a little bit to the history of why the name changed to Redskins, but part of it, from what I understand, and I've seen this documented in different places, maybe it's being true, is a friend was like, Boston Braves, you got a bad taste in your mouth. Now you're in Fenway. Red Sox, Redskins. Hey, that makes sense. So that the Redskins was in part a break from the Braves. Keep the Indian imagery, the Native American imagery, but call it the Redskins. It kind of makes sense, Red Sox to Redskins, since you were the Braves playing in Boston. Then, in the 1936 NFL Championship, the attendance has gotten so bad, the Boston, now Redskins, have the opportunity to host the championship game. They've gone to this East-West. The league originally was like 1920, and it goes through a couple different names, becomes the National Football League. There's a move to a championship game, divide the league East and West. Now they're hosting, and Marshall is so upset with the city, he moves the game to the Polo Grounds, and they lose to the Packers. Now, he's really upset the fans. So I believe it's his wife that says, why don't you go back to D.C. where you grew up and make it the Washington Redskins? And that's kind of that part of the story.
Now, I mean, as you were growing up, did you ever look at the name as, a negative stereotype? Or did you just look at it like, hey, Redskins, powerful, the image of strength, I guess, is my point.
I don't think
the deal there?
I don't think as a kid. Well, I'm so unaware of so many things because we are the last team to integrate. Ernie Davis is drafted, refuses to play, and there's a trade for Bobby Mitchell. So I actually have somewhere around here all this memorabilia. When I was a little kid, I'm absolutely in love with Charlie Taylor and Bobby Mitchell, black men playing for the Redskins. And as a little white kid growing up, I mean, I loved them. I don't know the history. At 6, when I go to my first game in '68, I have the ticket. It was still DC Stadium. Bobby Kennedy's shot June of '68. And when I go to my first game, October 6th, Sonny Jurgensen's, of course, my hero too. That's my favorite player. So I go to the game. My ticket says DC Stadium, and the face value is $6. So that's how far back that goes.
Wow.
Then the next year I go, I'm at the first game in '69 when it became RFK Stadium. In January of '69, after the death of Kennedy, they named it RFK. So I was at the very first game, Cardinals and Redskins. So to answer your question on that, looking back at the history and realizing the bad race relations the team had, the Dixie and the fight song, and sort of how George Preston Marshall is perceived, it looks like an ugly history. But yeah, as a young child, I'm seeing a team with black guys, white guys, and I believe Ray Shonky was Native American. I can't remember if he was Native American or not. I think he was, and there was a couple of guys that you kind of hear that maybe they were at least part Native American. But as a white kid growing up in America, I think as a lot of people would say, certainly the imagery we got from TV and movies was the Western, and we saw the imagery or the portrayal of Native Americans in every movie. And these are supposed to be late 19th century, type of depictions. But as a kid, I thought it's cowboys and Indians, and I'm for the Indians, because when the Redskins played the Cowboys. Now, looking back, did I think it was kind of clownish, that the marching band was wearing headdress and all the Redskin cheerleaders wearing little princess outfits, Indian prince? It didn't really cross my mind, because it was a white-centric culture, clearly, that projected certain images on other cultures. Do I think it was done in hatred? Absolutely not. Was it, though, a potential power thing? Is there, you hear people say, like, the Fighting Irish. If you're Irish and Catholic and you're a fan of Notre Dame, do you really care that it's the Fighting? You probably think that's kind of sexy. I like that. It's the Fighting Irish. And the Celtics in Boston, the Vikings. I don't know that. They're probably not on par. But to answer your question, no, as a young child, absolutely not. It really wasn't until the 80s that I ever really remember hearing anything about, that it was potentially a name that was going to come into play. And I remember in 91, when the Redskins went to their last Super Bowl and won, there were people picketing in Minneapolis at that Super Bowl against the Bills. I remember that being in the news. Then it felt like when they got bad in the 90s, Gibbs is out, the team's falling apart before Snyder takes over. It seemed like it kind of became a back issue again because they weren't very good. It just wasn't in the news.
Now, what about fan reaction in general to the name change? I mean, I get it, from the outside. I'm not in the belly, but what was the fan reaction? I mean, do you understand it? I mean, yourself, do you understand the issue?
I do. So I do. And in preparation to go on with you, I think there's a bunch of different things running. One is, and I'm not sure that it matters, is what does the name really mean? Now, I thought interesting that when the name was dropped in 2020, and again, like you said, the renaming that came about with Commanders, as I'm sure you did, I see this first Native American Guardian Association, and this beautiful guy that's a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. He's a retired Marine, and he's saying, we, with our organization, want the name back. You are destroying American Indians or Native Americans in the culture by pulling all this, and we want the name back. And his name is Billy Diekman, I believe it was Billy Diekman. He made the comment that in his study and understanding of the term Redskins, it is a very sacred term in Native American culture as the warrior who paints oneself going into battle to makes a pact with God of putting it all on the line. I'm like, okay, he's saying that. Can he say that? All right, he says that. What I find interesting, though, about Native American culture and the team, a couple things. There was a 2016 study, I believe it was the Washington Post, and 91% of Native Americans polled, and if it's a large enough sample size is anybody's guess, but in that, 91% said, I either don't care, there's much bigger fish to fry, other things in my life that concern me, or they loved it. Now, there's a young lady on YouTube who goes into genealogy. She did her own personal, and she starts to get into this question of where we come from, what are our bloodlines. And when she finishes graduate school, she goes to a Native American reservation, Navajo Indians. I think it was in New Mexico. And she says her first day, and I believe she's Greek or Italian. Her ethnicity, I don't really remember, but she goes on and she starts to teach. She just got her master's degree. And every kid on the grounds of this school have on Redskin jackets and or Braves caps. So she goes up to a kid and said, what gives? I thought it was offensive. No, that is badass. That is the baddest ass, symbol you can have out there. I'm proud of that. Now we get into the part that's also an uncomfortable thing to discuss, and I have several of them here. But the helmet logo that we came up with, as you probably know, was a gift from the Blackfoot Indians. Walter Blackie Wetzel gave this, and it was John Two Guns Whitecalf, who is also the image with the buffalo nickel. So this is a Blackfoot Indian gift. They go in and say, you've gone to the R helmet, which I have one of up here, which was the Lombardi helmet. Lombardi comes in 69, tragically dies of cancer in 70, but he wanted to make the team uniform exactly like the Packers, except everywhere green now became burgundy, and he wants to go with the gold helmet. So along comes Blackie Wetzel to say, hey, put that Indian head symbol on the helmet. And I'm sorry, I know whatever offense is brought to people in history, that is the most beautiful helmet ever. I mean, again, it might offend some people to say that, but it is a good looking helmet. It always was a good looking helmet. And in that question of name is a separate thing from imagery. And that's why they saw a South Dakota senator, I believe it was South Dakota, came out and said that they wanted to get the logo back without the name, to have some kind of throwback uniform or something where there's an acknowledgement of the Wetzel family and, maybe go back and wear the helmet at times. It's a complicated issue.
I was like, who pushed the issue? Like who, you know what I mean? Like to change a name is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, who pushed the issue? Is it Native Americans mostly?
Well, I thought about that. Boy, I'm going way out there politically correct. In the present environment, I don't know exactly what anybody can say still, but I did think about it that it's about 5 lanes I thought about coming into this. There is the word itself, which the historians are in battle over, and one of the battles is, and I've seen the documentation to try to support this view. It is a term that Native Americans took on that was first discovered by the French. And the French put a word to it, red people. It was pre-English putting any kind of spin on it. But it was Native Americans saying, hey, here comes some white folks that have come in to settle for good or for bad. Then when slaves were brought in from Africa and African Americans brought in, well, they look a different shade than we do. So it became an identification of we're the red people, white people, black people. I've heard that in certain treaties, the Native Americans refer to themselves as red people. So there's that argument, which gets you in a lot of dicey situations because how dare you? But hell, if that's one of the people that kind of coined the phrase, but does that mean it's not offensive today? No. Is there still a reason to pull it? Maybe. Now, the next lane I think that's important is the cultural appropriation argument they make that when they made the move to Redskins, there was a coach that had questionable Native American heritage that Marshall put in the position. And there is the famous Carlisle school that Jim Thorpe went to. And apparently in that early quarter century of the 20th century, there were a lot of Indian schools, Native Americans that were really good at football. And they'd even had a team earlier in NFL history that was made up of almost exclusively of Native Americans. So
in
Marshall, go ahead.
In the NFL?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There was in and out. Oh my gosh. When it comes to franchises, they popped in and out. Nobody could afford to keep the teams going. The Steagles thing we talked about earlier, that was a World War II issue. But franchises were flipping all the time. So I heard an argument that George Preston Marshall, especially with his ugly history of race relations, had no business naming a team the Redskins and carrying all the Indian imagery or whatever. How dare he do so? Even if he threw a couple of Native American players on the team, but they painted themselves in war paint, then of course he was the master showman. So he did the halftime show, the fight song, Hail to the Redskins. All this stuff comes about. And they go through the period where they're good. They win in 37. They win in 42. I think they played in their last championship game in 45 and lost. Of course, they were famously beaten the hell out of by the Bears in 40, 73-0. But the opening of the team is good. Now they get to Washington. The league begins to integrate. They don't. And they go through this really horrible period of 15 or so years until Lombardi gets there. There's not a winning season for 15 years leading up to Lombardi. But pre-integration, the teams are really getting bad. Bobby Mitchell, of course, famously becomes the first black athlete to play. They draft Charlie Taylor in 1964. He's a Hall of Famer. He's Rookie of the Year. So as the team integrates, there is a rebound. You have the Lombardi season. George Allen leads to Joe Gibbs. So that lane is the question of, can you be white and make a team with the Indian name? But on the flip side, which I find the interesting point to give this long answer to your question, what if a white group of Americans gets together and say, hey, Native Americans, you guys that love the name and love the imagery, no, calm down. We're in here to help. We're here to tell you what you're supposed to feel. It is offensive, but I love the name. I love the imagery. No. You can't say that. That's not for you to determine. So if it is 90% want the name, but 10% adamantly think or opposed and think that it's insulting, I don't know what the answer is. Do I think it could be insulting? Absolutely. But the other major lane is the question of, what does Redskins mean? Not only the origins of the word, but is there something to this question of, is it associated with bounties on Native American people? And I actually want to get into an article that was written. It was in Esquire magazine. And this was back from 2014. Update. Yes. This was the title of the article. Yes, a redskin does in fact mean the scalped head of a Native American sold for cash. Or pelt sold for cash. Now, this is what's interesting. And I'm parsing words, but I think it's important. And, again, this probably bring me a lot of heat, but this is what they have. Winona, Minnesota, from the Daily Republican article, September 24, 1863. It reads, the state reward for dead Indians has been increased to $200 for every redskin sent to purgatory. This sum is more than the dead bodies of all Indians east of the Red River are worth. That's awful. No question about it. No question. Maybe unintended consequences too. And I don't think what I'm getting ready to say is a good thing either. But I'm no fan of Daniel Snyder, nor do I think anyone that's ever had a Redskin history or Washington football team history is really, really fond of him. And what I couldn't believe what happened. I was in that period from 1966 on where there was a 40,000 person waiting list for season tickets. The last games I went to in the last 10 years, there are 75% other teams' fans there. Now, with the command, oh gosh. Yeah, if you went to Redskins Eagles, let's say 2019, last year, the team name, it was 75% green. Absolutely. And with the advent of StubHub and all the other, I'm not trying to do an advertisement, but when you have all these ticket things, fan ticket type of situations, pretty much the Washington people have been, once the team starts to lose, they start unloading all the tickets. And if you're in Philly, trip to DC is not that far. Hell, let's get the family together and go down and see our team play in Washington and go, yell and scream at them how bad they are. And that's pretty much what happened. And as someone who grew up in RFK, and brother, I'm going to tell you what, if you never experienced RFK, you had to be there. And people that listen to this that know, that place rocked. That was sacred ground.
Yeah, I watch a lot of games. I mean, obviously I've never been there,
but when you were there,
huge football fan. Yeah.
And when you were there, it was a special, special place. And I never liked the new stadium. It seemed artificial. It's 12 miles outside the city. It's out in Maryland. Somebody, God bless Maryland, but I mean, it's just not the same. The team needs to be in the city. And that was sacred ground. It was Arlington Cemetery across Memorial Bridge to the Lincoln Memorial, and then the Washington Monument across the mall to the Capitol in a straight line was that designated by Congress to be originally the Stadium of the United States, and they made it RFK Stadium. So it was in a direct line. And yeah, so again, you can tell what kind of passion I have for the team. But
are you a season ticket holder?
No, I never was. I actually, when I started going, I went with people that had it. And then in the last 20, 25 years, it was more of a group of us would get together. Matter of fact, I have the Sean Taylor, the 21 towel up. I was at his last game against the Eagles. And I've done a lot of podcasts where I've said this. He's the best athlete player I've ever seen. I'm in Williamsburg, Virginia now. And I can tell you, we all know Lawrence Taylor's the best player that ever played. To me, Lawrence Taylor, that's only Lawrence Taylor. And he's right here from Williamsburg, Virginia. But the best, I missed LT. One time I had a chance to see him play. He did not play. Redskins, Giants. But yeah, Sean Taylor is the greatest player I ever saw. And I was at his last game and then the game after his death. And I think that kind of tarnished that stadium for me too. It was just so sad when he passed and the way he passed.
True.
And then it was another downhill slide until RG3. And I was at the game to beat the Cowboys to win the NFC East. And then I've not gotten in to see Jaden Daniels yet, but how do you not love him? I mean, he's
I like him. He's cool under fire. He can sling the rock. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's just cool under pressure. Yeah, he's good. I like him.
I think he proves another premise, too, that I've discussed with a lot of people. I think that there was a real rash of bad choices being made with kids who had a breakout junior year at 21. You know, they had 2 years kind of red shirt and are sitting around, 1 year red shirt, sit around a year. Then they have a breakout season. Then they go, hey, I'm going to go into the draft. And the thing about Daniels, and you're going to see it more and more probably with the NIL. Kids are getting some money in school. Why not just stay in school? But he had 55 starts in college between Arizona State and LSU. The kid played 55 games, and he turned 24 in December. I'm not knocking it, but he was no child when he got in there. I mean, you know, he had some chance for advancement. And I think there's too many kids that have been ruined at 21. The game is overwhelming, and they never recover from their first bad season in the NFL.
Is there a controversy with the Chiefs name?
Yes, but not to the degree. Okay, it's funny because I did one of these podcasts on my own. You know, and I was told long ago, you know, that supposedly Joe Rogan famously said, don't ever look at the comments. But I do one time, and I get, that's right, white guy trying to explain, you know, Native American culture to whatever. But the point I made on the show, and it came up in a short on YouTube, the point I was making is I didn't recognize why the Washington team under Heat didn't pivot back to Braves. Keep the image on the helmet, keep all that. And it's historically the first name. So you've gone Boston Braves to Boston Redskins, Washington Redskins, hey, revert back to Braves. It's in the history. And Atlanta keeps it. So I make that comment along with their tomahawk chopping still in Kansas City. And I said, and they get no heat. And I literally then said, well, I won't say no heat, but. So I get this comment like it's a raging fire of hatred towards the Chiefs. So, you know, I kind of go look at it. It's all 4 years ago. So as the Redskins and Indians are dropping their names, people are really pushing the Chiefs. However, right before this last Super Bowl, there's some people in the parking lot making some noise about it. But that's one thing I can say about Washington fans. There was the Hogettes. I mean, that's interesting that in the 80s, there was a bunch of men and women wearing dresses that were businessmen, you know.
Hogs, I remember that.
Yeah, and smoking cigars and stuff. But when you look at how fans act, your average M1A1 Redskin fan had a jersey on. That's kind of all I remember. Now, there were some people that you might every once in a while see some kind of dress, but I never saw a tomahawk chop. And I never saw certain types of fan behavior that you see in other places where Native American mascots or teams have been used.
They have the Seminoles too, right? In that Florida, or is that
Florida State? Florida State. Right. That brings up an interesting point because when this name controversy started, I had a friend that said, you know what Snyder should have done? I'm like, what's that? He goes, he should have gone to a tribe, a recognized nation of one of the nations of Native Americans and said, let's partner. And I'm like, talk to me more. And he goes, well, you know why they never pull Seminoles, right? And I said, he goes, because the Seminole Indians are in on it. And then I do a little research and that's it. So that is the state team for the Seminole Indians. And if you say to them, hey, I feel kind of offended, they say, how about screw you? It's our team. And that's why it remains the Florida State Seminoles. It's because the actual Seminole Nation is in league with the college and they love it. So they do their thing and being the Seminoles and having a spear on the side of the helmet. You're not going to talk them out of that because it's their team.
What's the overall, I mean, this obviously I know your opinion, but overall the fans in general, I mean, I don't know if you could speak for everyone, but the overall majority of fans, so they don't like this change.
They hate the name. But
do you hate the name?
I do. I do.
I mean, I again, I'm coming from a different perspective, not
Yeah.
a diehard fan of the team, but I said, I was like, Commanders, okay, I like that. I mean, not the greatest name, but it was like, okay. But again, it's not my team that I
Right.
root for. But so you don't like it.
I don't like it. And he
When you
was.
go,
Mhm.
sorry, when you go to the games,
Yeah.
what percentage of people are still wearing the old school
85, 90.
of Redskin stuff?
That's
Like
all they wear.
the jerseys,
All
not the
everything.
helmets,
Yeah.
obviously, but the symbols
Some of
and all
that
that?
too. They wear helmets. No, but yeah, if you go to a game now, they're still wearing everything. That something that has come up is how do you not throw a throwback? And is it the spear helmet's less offensive? Is the R, but it's got a feather on it, less offensive? Is the Indian head, is, the two guns, white calf imagery of the Buffalo nickel figure, is that offensive? Again, I don't know how that beautiful picture of this Native American can be ugly. I mean, but now one argument that I've certainly heard that I've never really thought about because I'm not maybe in that position, but there have been Native Americans who have said, we're not your mascot. We're simply as a people not a mascot to others.
Makes sense. Yeah. I know you're a baseball fan.
Mm-hmm.
Just curious, are you a Capitals fan?
No, I respect hockey. When you freeze some water and you put some men out there with some sticks, all that. I get that. Like
I only bring it up because
yeah.
Ovechkin is about to break one of the greatest records
Yeah.
ever. I mean, Wayne Gretzky. Well, I mean, even if you don't follow hockey, everyone knows Wayne Gretzky's record was supposedly untouchable. So yeah, I'm a huge hockey fan. So it's like anyway, that's a big deal in the sports world.
Well, in your opening, I want to tell you too. I don't know what it is about me being from Virginia, but I think all of my favorite people are from Pennsylvania, and I absolutely love Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
It's the most solid people in the world.
Yeah.
Not to
lived
disparage
there till I was 30. Moved here.
It's a
for a
great
job.
town.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I mean, I could not imagine the Steelers playing in a suburban area outside of where they are now. It would just be like, I don't know, not the same viral passion driving 10 miles to get to the place.
Because he brought it.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
In a hypothetical world, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to eliminate baseball or football. Which one would you eliminate? Which one would you keep as a fan yourself?
Wow. I don't know, because to be honest with you, this is another whole road we can go down.
I thought for sure you'd say football. I'm shocked.
Well, no. 10 years ago, I played baseball in college, and okay. I am heavily involved in working with a lot of kids that played in pro ball. I'm an attorney. I did player representation, worst business on earth. But it's kind of like I'm in baseball in a different way. It's like when I watch a game, I'm looking at the player. I'm a Red Sox fan because for whatever crazy reason, I love Yastrzemski. I'm some kid growing up in Virginia, and I love Yaz. And Yaz is one of the greatest players of all time. Then I fall in love with Jim Rice. And it's Fredland, and it's Fisk, and it's Dewey. God, I love Dwight Evans. So, there's all these players in Boston that I like. I'm not in Boston. But when it came to my love of Washington and the Redskins, was an entirely different love. But what I was going to say, like 10 years ago, I'm on the bus and I tell these group of guys, I'm like, guys, pro football peaked in the 80s. I'm like, Coach, I don't think those guys could play today. I'm like, you don't think Lawrence Taylor could play today? You don't think Reggie White could play today? Like, what do you think those guys were? Like, I've seen them in person. So we get in this big, long argument. So when I put out the fire, I finally said, okay, guys, who's your Bo Jackson? That ended it. You don't have a Bo Jackson, guys. Nobody's Bo Jackson. Dion was playing two sports. Brian Jordan was playing two sports. Those guys don't exist. Jay Schrader was a third overall pick in baseball and went and played. He had a career in the NFL. I mean, it kind of flamed out a little bit there, but he could throw a football 85 yards. And John Elway, Marino, Warren Moon. I'm sorry, guys. The player, I don't know. You tell me. It looks like flag football to me now.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I have a little segment I call this or that. I'm just going to run some stuff by you. Just tell me quickly.
Yeah.
Your preference.
Yeah.
You kind of answered some of these already.
Yeah.
But just for the fun thing, just to wrap it up. Luxury box or peanut heaven? In other words, you go to a game, you want to be in the luxury box or peanut heaven?
It depends. I've been in luxury boxes when I was a lawyer. It's a AAA stadium, but it was a luxury box I went to, and I went more to like socialize because I could care less about the result on the field.
Let's talk Redskins. Commanders. Football, professional.
Back in the day when it was Redskins, yeah. If I definitely wanted to be down there in the rain and the mud and all the rest. I wanted to be beside the field. Yeah, I wanted to be as close to the field.
How about Jalen Daniels or Joe Theismann?
Oh man, you hurt me there, man, because I love Joe. But I mean, gosh, Jalen Daniels,
got 1 year.
No, but Jaden, I mean, he's a beautiful kid. He always thanks God for his blessings. I mean, you can't. But I love Joe because Joe was a warrior. Joe was a warrior. The night he broke his leg.
That was brutal.
It was awful. But I saw a piece with him and Taylor together talking about it. What I thought, man, was like a guy thing. Is Taylor said, I felt so bad because I respected you so much.
I might be saying his name
wrong. Mark
Rippon or Doug Williams.
Once again, it's two quarterbacks that won Super Bowls, and then once again, their commonalities, he had nothing on the back end of it. And I used to say, and I love Doug Williams. I love what he did, but Doug Williams did pick the best day of his life to have the best day of his life.
I mean, you peak. I mean, it's like, that was a perfect timed day.
And Rippon was 91 Super Bowl, and by 93, he's a bench guy and he's on his way kind of out. So, I mean, both of them did not follow well the Super Bowl victories. Joe Gibbs 1.0, the first stint, the only losing season he has is 88, when it's really between Williams and Rippon as the starter, and Williams has some injury issues. But, yeah, neither one of them had a really good season to follow.
How about, do you prefer an offensive battle, 45-44, or a defensive battle?
I would never have thought this, but because of what's happening, guys, some of these Chiefs-Bills games to keep going to the playoffs and all, it's kind of making me sick because I recognize there's no way either one of them is going to stop the other one. So it literally does come down to who gets the ball last. You're sitting there counting seconds like, okay, they're going to score here. And then 37 seconds later, Mahomes is going to score another touchdown and Ken Allen score another one. And you're talking about 4 touchdowns in the span of a minute and a half. And that's really what's happening. So because they won't let them play defense anymore, and I think that's really what it is, I think it's kind of an inferior product.
So you're leaning towards defensive.
I respected it. Yeah. Now that everything is a pinball machine scoring, it's kind of, I want to say it's boring, but there seems to be something lacking in the competition end of it. I think with the defensive thing, a break meant a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know the answer to this next one. I was going to say old school 70s football or today's game.
Oh, definitely 70s, although my peak time would be 80s. I thought the 80s
I meant before they softened it up and, like the kickoff rule and onside kicks. I don't like it. I don't like the new kickoff rule. I understand the safety part, but, and then you got to tell someone you're going to make an onside kick also. It's just, I don't get it. It's just...
No,
I like the surprise element.
Well, and this is something else, too, that I hate about baseball with you don't throw the 4 pitches for the walk anymore.
I don't like that either. I like the pitch count, though. I do like that. Or not the pitch count, the pitch
clock. Yeah.
I thought I wouldn't, but I like that.
No, I've gotten used to it, but, that was always one of the beauties of baseball. There is no clock, but...
So the last one.
Yes, sir.
John Riggins or Clinton Portis?
Well... Actually, I think the world of Clinton Portis. I do. I really do.
Great.
And he was traded for Champ Bailey, which did break my heart because Champ Bailey is one of those guys like Sean Taylor. You had to see it. As a matter of fact, I saw Champ Bailey, Deion Sanders, and Darryl Green on the same team in 2000. And they could all run, but Champ Bailey was twice as big. So he's one of my favorites. So it's kind of hard not to love Riggins more than anything because he got us a ring. And he's a Hall of Famer. And I'd take Riggins over him if you're pushing me on that. But Clinton, if you're listening, I love you. I always thought the world of you.
So, who is your Mount Rushmore of Washington Commanders teams, or Redskins Commanders over the years? Mount Rushmore. Who's on that wall?
That has been asked, and I am. It's not like my license plate is SJ9HOF. It's like Sonny Jurgensen 9. Like that's how. And I've still got Redskin tags. I haven't given them up in Virginia.
So you're putting Jurgensen on there, right?
I have to put Sonny, but I think that the problem is that I think Sammy Ball has to be on there. Sammy Baugh is an all-around player, defensive back. I mean, he literally had a game with 4 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions in the same game. And he was the league's best punter. And for many years, he was the history's best punter until I think some people have passed him. Is he playing from 37 to 52? But yeah, all right, he's there.
Baugh, Jurgensen.
Well, I'm gonna hold off on Sonny for a moment because as hard as that is, I think Baugh has to be on it. And I think Charlie Taylor has to be on it. He is a Hall of Famer. But then I get all wound around the axle about Mitchell because Mitchell was a pioneer and a Hall of Famer. And he's one of the numbers that's retired. And
there's a lot of choices. I mean, it's
a
tough wall.
Darryl Green generally goes in there. So I'll just throw out some names and then we can kind of pare down. But the other guy, I tell you, when it gets into the emotional heart stuff, love a player more than anybody, it's Art Monk. I mean, I don't know that I ever loved a player as much as I did Monk. And I was one pissed off human being for the longest time. And I'll tell you something. This is controversial too. I think that Gibbs' Christianity and the type of guys he brought in really was something that hurt them for recognition. If you watch, and I watched it the other night, the induction of Darryl Green and Art Monk, a lot of what they talk about is their love of their wife, their children, their families, and God. Whether people like it or not, that's who they are.
Right.
And I remember sometime a friend of mine said, well, I don't know if Monk was there. I said, you know what? When you leave a game of competition, and you've done more of it that you got paid for than anyone that ever played, you're a Hall of Famer. He left the game the number 1 all-time receiver for receptions. He got blown away down the line by Jerry Rice and other great receivers. But how can you leave the game catching the ball more than anyone? Well, he didn't have a signature catch. I said, I think a lot of it is he slept with his own wife. He never got a stint in jail, and he's a beautiful guy, and he's very quiet. He handed the ball to the official. He didn't have an elaborate scheme of how he's going to celebrate. I really believe that hurt him. Now, Darryl Green was a little bit different character, but also a man of God. And he got in on first ballot, but I don't see how Art Monk takes 8 years to get in.
So you're putting him on the mountain? I mean, the Mount Rushmore?
Well, he's my guy. Well,
let's do it. You got Baugh, you got Monk.
Green has to be on it.
Joe Theismann?
No, Joe's not ahead of Sonny for sure. Okay, I'm gonna go Sonny. I'm gonna go Sonny, Baugh, Monk. And I'm gonna go Monk and Green and that. Yeah, but still I'm leaving off guys I love.
That's fine.
I still love Bobby Mitchell and Charlie Taylor.
Jack, this has been great. I mean, a lot of information, a lot of good stuff. I really appreciate you coming on, though. I learned a lot of history.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate being here, and a good Pittsburgh guy like yourself. I'd love to have you come see me one time on a show.
Don't even get me started. They keep finishing 500, and that's what you're going to get. You're going to get middle of the road draft choices, and it's just they can't. Now they're looking for a quarterback. It's not. It's rough.
It's funny you say that. That is absolutely true because I remember different years going through it. Man, that middle is so bad. Because when you land in the middle and you get that 15th choice.
Yeah, they're Tomlin. Oh, he always finishes above 500. Well,
yeah,
but he's not winning anything. I mean, I like him, but at the same time, I think they need a fresh something. It's just, players love him. I don't give a fuck. I want a title. I want something.
Give me
a playoff win. Give me a playoff win.
It is crazy you've had 3 coaches since 1969.
I like that. I don't want them to bounce from coach to
coach.
It's
crazy. Yeah, but I'm saying, yeah.
But still, I like I don't know.
Well, I think anybody would say, though, a message is lost over time. Tom Landry. For God's sake, Tom Landry, he's one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. But by that late 80s, I don't think the game passed him by. But, it's just
you need a fresh something.
He had to get out. And that way he went out was not fair. But I want your Steeler views on. And Pirates, I want you to give me some Pirate stories if you're into baseball on the Pirate side.
Skeens. Thank God for Paul Skeens.
Yeah. There's some good history, though. You got some great players.
Thanks for watching. If you hit the subscribe button, it'll help us out a lot.